How's it going, SnowTrax YouTube viewers? Luke back again. And if you can see that we're excited about having a Lynx snowmobile in our fleet, it's pretty obvious we are. What I wanted to do today, though, is do something that you asked for. In our first unboxing video that AJ and I did, a number of you asked for a comparison between the Renegade XRS and the Lynx RAVE RE 3500. I'll get the name better soon. And the reason you want a comparison is because a lot of you are going to be shopping between these two sleds. It makes perfect sense. And in my walk around video, I alluded to the fact that they are not actually targeted at the same customer, sort of. They sort of are and sort of aren't. But they do have very different personalities despite sharing some common components. So I thought with this video, I would simply go over the differences, the things that are in fact different between the two of them, so that you can make your own judgment on whether one is going to suit you better than the other. I'm going to stay away from actual like in-depth ride impressions on how they feel different or they perform different. I'm going to talk more about the physical stuff. We will talk more about ride impressions between the two in the future, but for right now, I just want to cover the differences. And the first one that is most obvious, just standing here, is the look. They are completely different. I was just standing around with my guy Simon talking about what is the same in terms of parts on these two sleds up front, plastics. And so far, all we could come up with is that this top console with the door and this little piece in the middle right below the gauge is the same. These air vents are the same. And I think this lower belly pin is the same as well down here, though they're, you know, everything else, every other part on the body of this thing is different. The headlights are the same, but this nose piece is different. So I think these two are different enough in terms of parts in the front end that you can say they are different. You know, a lot of people are going to argue they're the same. They're not. They're not the same. And we're going to see more of that as we move back through. Obviously, the handguards are the same handguard, but one says Ski Doo and one says Lynx, so that's sweet. Moving on, shocks. So these are both KYB shocks. These ones are your standard XRS package shocks with adjustable compression and rebound. This is the KYB Pro 46 HLCR whatever, high-low speed compression and rebound. This is the maximum shock. This is the race shock. This is the trail race shock. This is the XRS shock, race shock. So there's a big difference there. You can't get your adjustable ski on this sled. It doesn't come that way. It's not an option on a Lynx. You could add it, I guess, after the fact, but it's not an option. They only come with this ski, which is a great ski. The Blade XC I really like. This works good too. My preference though over the two would be this ski. I actually like how this one cuts in the snow. It works really well. Front suspension designs are the same. The A-arms are the same. The spindles are the same design. One says Ski Doo, one says Lynx on it, so that's really the only difference, but the same spindle, both the RASX width, wider front end. So that's interesting. The bulkheads are the same underneath it all. As we move back through the sled though, there becomes more differences. So your cockpit is very similar, except that on this sled, you don't get the adjustable handle pull. This is a 90mm riser, and it's the only way this thing comes. My assumption is that overseas where guys ride these, they're not interested in adjusting for, you know, aggressive riding up front and then I'm going to cruise on the trail out back. They're basically just, it's aggressive all the time. So when they set their handlebars and their riser block, it just stays that way because that's where it's supposed to be for them. And that makes sense. It's lighter, it's simpler, it looks a little bit cleaner, but interesting difference there that this doesn't come that way. Another difference is that this does not come, you cannot get this sled with the full color gauge. This comes with the basic, just regular LCD gauge. I like this gauge a lot. I think it's easy to read, it's functional. There's nothing that it doesn't do that I need it to do. It also means that you don't have the jog dial right here. And that's, to me, a good thing for people who are going to ride aggressively. We've always said that there is the possibility that if you're riding very aggressively, you could bump your knee into that and break it off. I haven't heard any stories, so that may not be an issue, but it's a possibility. And for guys who ride this type of sled in Scandinavia, they're going through bumps like crazy. They're all over the sled, you know, throwing it around. So that would have been a distraction and something that would have been in the way. So that was smart on BRP's part to pull that off on Lynx's part to make sure that that wasn't there. It's not that it wouldn't fit. It's just that it's not a necessary feature for guys who ride in Scandinavia and in that area of the world. Body panels are obviously different on each side. The release system is different. It uses quick releases in 2 spots and straps in 2 spots. This uses 3 quick releases. This is actually a kind of a cleaner, more efficient system, but I have noticed the panels on the Lynx come on and off really easy, so that's kind of nice. Big difference you can see just standing back at this angle though is you can get a feel for how different the cockpit is and the seating position is. This spar right here is the same as this spar right here, but it's covered up on this sled. Even the side panel goes right up and actually overlaps it in a spot. The seat obviously goes right up to the tank. Here the seat ends early, the side panel cuts below, and the tank is exposed right here in the middle. So this sled is, in this area here, way narrower than a Ski Doo. Now this might be more comfortable for you because you might be a person who's not as an aggressive rider, you're not off the side of the sled all the time. This might actually be a better system. This seat is also way softer than this seat. So if you're the kind of person who likes to cruise, ride sitting down most of the time, and you're not going to be hanging it out all the time, this is probably a more comfortable platform than this is. Now with that said, if you're an aggressive rider and you really like to rip, this is a great platform. I was really impressed with how the narrowness of this chassis area right here made it easier to move around on the sled and allowed me to ride more aggressively. A couple other little differences. Right here in the footwell area, there's a riser block riveted to the actual running board. And then you have these side brackets here to help keep your foot in. The Ski Doo doesn't have that. It's a flat running board all the way to the front with no side hooks. That's just a design feature that the guys at Lynx felt that was a better ergonomic way to stand on the sled for aggressive riding. So whether that's good or bad, it's completely irrelevant. It's just different. So that's another difference. As we move back further, obviously these are both 137s. Obviously they're completely different skid frames. You got an R-Motion here and a PPS3 here. Totally different. Like they couldn't be more different than they are from each other. This is a coupled skid. You can get the tunnel adjusters. It's super plush. Like everybody knows, an R-Motion is the most plush skid frame in the industry. It resists bottoming better than any other trail skid in the industry. This is the skid frame in the industry, is R-Motion. There's no question. This is R-Motion X. So this is the best riding skid frame in the industry. This PPS3 is completely uncoupled. It's much less plush, though I haven't messed with the suspension just yet enough to say that it can't be as plush. It might, I don't know. But it doesn't feel as plush. In terms of bottoming, it feels like there's no end to travel on this sled. It feels like it has like 100 inches of travel. It's bizarre. So I can't speak about bottoming because it hasn't happened yet, as hard as I've tried. But they're very different. This sled on the Renegade keeps its nose down, and that's the way it's designed. It's meant to keep its nose on the ground and handle completely flat. That was the whole point of RAS X, was to keep the nose down and flat handling. So this sled achieves its goal, achieves its design goal by Ski Doo perfectly, and does exactly what Ski Doo wants it to do, and exactly what a lot of riders are going to want it to do. You can adjust, as we've seen, the flip chip on the skid on the R-Motion X, which will bring back a little bit more of that playful feel and lighten the front end up, make it wheelie some more. But as it's set up now and as it comes from the factory, it really doesn't wheelie hardly at all, and it keeps the nose on the ground. It's designed to be very aggressive. The Lynx, on the other hand, couldn't be more opposite. This sled, being uncoupled, number one, but also in how they want it to work, this sled transfers weight like crazy, lifts the skis on command everywhere, and it's just super playful. Like this is probably one of the most playful snowmobiles I've ever ridden in terms of being able to get the skis up, get it sideways, deep snow, pulling it over on its side. It does all of that effortlessly. And the reason they have it set up this way, this is a very interesting point. The whole reason PPS3 exists the way it does is because they wanted a skid frame that basically let you go through the bumps like you would on a dirt bike. So if anybody's ever ridden a dirt bike knows, when you go through big whoops, you're usually weighted on the back, sometimes the front wheel in the air, and you kind of skip across the top of them. That's exactly how this goes through the bumps. And it's uncanny how specific it does that. It does it exactly how I just described it. When you come into a long whoop section, you stand up, you lean back and hit the gas, the nose comes up and it just rides on the skid all the way through the bumps, and you barely even feel them. So the skid is genius. It works exactly how it's supposed to work. But as I alluded to in my walk around, this also makes a really great trail skid. I found out yesterday that it allows the sled to keep the nose on the ground and handle go around corners. So there's, to me, very few downsides to this thing, other than I can't speak to whether or not I can make it ride super plush. And that's what I'm going to try to do later this afternoon and over the weekend, is get it to ride plush on the small stuff. We'll see how that works out. We'll let you guys know in the test ride. At the back of the sleds, the tunnels are basically the same. The rear bumpers are the same. The tail lights are different. You got a dual bulb tail light here and a single bulb back here. So just something to set them apart. In terms of track choices, you can get the same tracks on both. So, you know, that's a general overview of what's different between these two sleds. There are obviously a lot of parts differences between the two. A lot of non-shared parts. There are some shared parts for sure, but there's a lot of non-shared parts on these things. But what's interesting about them is the way they work. They work completely different. They handle and ride completely different. So despite having the same front end, they're not the same on the trail at all. Despite having the same tunnel, they are not the same in the rear end at all on the trail. You know, despite sharing some of the same cockpit components, they do not feel the same to sit on at all, and you don't ride it the same way. So I hope that was informative for you guys. I hope that explains some things. It's more technical. I tried to stay away from opinion, but I'm a Lester, so the opinion just flows and I can't really help it sometimes. To be fair to both, these aren't the same sled, so don't expect them to be. If this Ski Doo does what Ski Doo says it does, and that's what you want a sled to do, then this is the sled for you. This isn't going to be the answer for everybody. This isn't just like, oh my goodness, it's better. It's not better. It's different. For a person who wants this type of riding style, that big bump, stand up, go fast riding style, this is going to be better. But not because it's a better sled, it's because it's designed to do that. And this isn't really designed to do that. So we have to keep those things in perspective when we're talking about these two vehicles. There's going to be a lot of people who simply buy the Lynx because it's new and it's a Lynx and they've always wanted a Lynx, or it's the newest, coolest thing. That might be a mistake for a lot of people, and I'm not discouraging anybody from buying one. What I'm saying is that make sure you know what you're buying and that it's going to do what you want a sled to do. As cool as it is, if it doesn't do what you want, or it doesn't handle, ride, perform the way you want it to, then your money hasn't been well spent. Likewise, though, on the Renegade, if this doesn't do what you want it to do, then it's not money well spent when there's an option out there that will. So know what kind of rider you are, know what kind of conditions you ride in, and understand what the sleds do and don't do differently and how they are. And that'll help you buy the right one. And we're going to do our best in a test ride to bring out all of the aspects of the Lynx and go way more in detail about how it works and where it works, and show you guys videos of going through bumps and going on the trail. So that's all coming up. For right now, I sincerely hope that answered a bunch of your questions that you asked and was a good example of how we do listen, and we want to help you guys understand sleds better. So if you like this video, make sure you like it. Comment, let us know if this was the answers you were looking for. And if you haven't already, subscribe. We've already had 2 videos on the Lynx out now. This is the 3rd one, so there's lots more content coming up, not just on the Lynx, but we're expecting to have a Mach Z here, hopefully sometime soon. Lots of content coming for that guy too. So anyway, hope you liked it. Hope this answered your questions. Until next time, make sure you stay tuned to SnowTrax TV.